find a lot of what you say a distraction. So what I want to do is just try and get an understanding of you rather than just make a judgment on videos based on some of the comments you were making with Sarah. So the first one is, every time Sarah mentioned Black death, Black exploitation, oppression, you felt the need to counter it with what about white people? Considering the fact that we've seen these murders and we've seen this oppression live and direct, and you say you're not a racist and you care about black people so much, you've given a lot of heartfelt testimony today about how much you're in support of black people. Do you not think the compassionate thing to do in that situation is say, do you know what, yeah, that is wrong, and just stop there? Why do you feel the need?
I did do that.
Why do you feel the need to counter every time a mention of a black death is made with, well, what about white people?
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all. I'm blickety black, blacker than black, black, I'm blacker than black, yo, because I'm black and I'm back. Yo, I'm black and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blickety black, black, black.
So that little gem, that clip from the film CB4, a 90s film starring Chris Rock. It's a rapumentary on a fictional group sort of based on NWA called CB4 for Cell Block 4. Anyway, one of the members of CB4, the rap group, is that guy that you just saw doing a solo track on Black Yo, and he is a Pan-Africanist, if that's a word, or an Afrocentrist, and he's all on that black empowerment, black pride, black power tip. And I use that clip because that film is a comedy, and that character in particular, and that song in particular, is just a piss take of Afrocentrists. Now, Sarah Garvey is an unironic Afrocentrist, as is the average IQ gentleman that was sat in the chair trying to question Tommy Robinson. Now, bear in mind that the dude that sat in the chair to question Tommy Robinson, he was very giddy at the prospect, very excited. He saw this as his opportunity to get the sort of king of racism, Tommy Robinson, and expose him for the evil white devil or racist that he is. Unfortunately for the gentleman, who all the way through the nearly 3-hour meeting or interview or debate was wearing sunglasses indoors, unfortunately for him, he wasn't of sufficient intellect to best Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson was too quick for him. And this guy was fully representative of the sort of Afrocentrists, and I call them what they are, which is anti-white racists, pro-black, Pan-African mates of Sarah Garvey that was in that room. So this dude made a very, very specific claim there. He said that every time black oppression and black murder or black killing or black death was mentioned, he said that every time that was mentioned, that Tommy Robinson said, but what about white people? And this is demonstrably and objectively false. Don't take my word for it. Go and watch the interrogation of Tommy Robinson by Sarah that they classed as an interview or debate. It wasn't really, it was just Sarah Garvey trying to prove Tommy Robinson was a racist, or at least accuse Tommy Robinson of being a racist on the basis of his rant against Black Lives Matter and the trashing of our monuments in London, most notably the Churchill statue. So you can all go and watch that. You can watch the whole hour thing and you can see how Tommy responds every time black oppression or black death or black murders are mentioned. And it is quite obvious, quite clear that every time it's mentioned, Tommy Robinson does not respond with what about white people. So this gentleman is not only of a mediocre average IQ, he is also a liar, disingenuous, dishonest, not au fait with objective reality or the truth. And that's no surprise because he has a clear agenda. And he also referenced black oppression and black death. Now, in the entire, I think the whole thing was the best part of 3 hours, but in the entire thing, I think the only British example they gave for a black killing was obviously the Stephen Lawrence thing. And I'm not sure, I'd need to watch it again, but that's even if they did mention it. I'm pretty sure they did mention the Stephen Lawrence thing. But they mentioned over and over again, as the guy did in his question to Tommy Robinson, George Floyd, George Floyd, George Floyd. Sarah Garvey mentioned George Floyd ad nauseum, constantly referenced George Floyd. Now, Sarah Garvey doesn't give a fuck about George Floyd, and neither does the low IQ guy trying to question Tommy Robinson. Neither of them give a fuck about George Floyd. It's all about neo-Marxist power dynamics. It's all about painting black people as victims and black people as the oppressed and victims of the white man. So evil white oppressors, look at what they do to us, they kill us, etc. So not once during the entire hour debate between Sarah and Tommy or the Q&A did any of the Black Your Afrocentrist side reference black on black crime, black on black murder. They certainly didn't reference any black on black crime or black on black murder in Britain, and they didn't mention or reference the black on black crime rates, the black on black murder rates, the black on black or just black in general knife crime rates. They weren't interested, don't give a fuck. So like the formal Black Lives Matter movement, who claim to care about black lives, it's in the tagline, Black Lives Matter. They don't give a fuck about black lives because they ignore the vast majority of black murders, which is from other black people. Now, this thing was filmed in Brixton in London. I've done a knife crime video on London for 2017, 2018. You can all go and watch that. In it, I detail all the crime statistics, and black people for knife crime are vastly overrepresented. Black and mixed race people are about 15 or 16% of the London population. And for knife accused, for the time period that I covered in the video, Afro-Caribbeans were fucking 49%. 49. So if you look for perpetrators and victims for knife murders for the year that I covered, 2017 to 18, black people were overrepresented. This was not mentioned once by these fucking clowns. So they don't give a fuck about black death. They don't give a fuck about black lives. Don't care, don't give a shit. This is purely political and ideological posture from these clowns.
I didn't feel the need to counter it, and I sat and didn't open my mouth on Black Lives Matter for weeks.
Sorry, I'm just talking about this interview, and I don't get as much screen time and mic
time
as you do. So I'm gonna try and ask direct questions, hopefully get really direct answers. So every time he mentioned, a black death or a black situation that we're unhappy with,
yep.
Why did you counter it with what about white people?
We're here to debate on an issue. I believe I'm here to put across the side to the British public, which I think are frustrated. And I think that as frustrated as the black community are with what's happening to them, the members of the white community are frustrated.
We are unhappy about a murder that we've seen. Let's just take George Floyd as one. We can forget about everything else.
And there we have it. Ignore everything else. George Floyd, George Floyd, George Floyd. Now, in the time since George Floyd's killing at the hands of police, multiple black people have been killed in Britain, and these were probably killed by other black people, but this was not mentioned the whole time. This guy does not mention it. Sarah Garvey did not mention it. Penfold, aka Big Brother, did not mention it. They don't give a fuck about black lives. They ignore black murders in their own country unless it's a white person doing it, or unless it's a white cop that does it. So these are full of shit people, liars. Like I said, it's all politics with these people.
When that gets mentioned, why do you need to counter that with what about white people? As somebody that
Did I counter that?
Yes.
What did I say?
Every single time you said, what about white people? What about the white girls that are getting raped and murdered? When we were just talking about an incident, and we're having a conversation about
we were talking about why black community are feeling aggrieved, why the black community are feeling angry.
Exactly. So we're talking about why we aggrieved. As somebody who is a non-racist, who's a non-bigot, who's compassionate and very supportive of the black community, why do you feel the need to counter that every single time?
Because we're here to discuss on either side why people are angry.
I would put it to you that I think you don't care, but that's just my opinion, because I feel like, again, you can't answer that question. Everybody here heard every time you countered with, well, what about white people?
Again, blatant lie from Mr. Average IQ, lying through his fucking teeth.
Okay. Just again, from my understanding.
I counted with statistics and numbers.
I wasn't asking about statistics.
No, but we need to. We need to.
We're talking about a death. This is an evil act that has happened.
Yep.
And you say your response.
Yep.
Appears as if, well, you've got nothing to complain about because white people get murdered all the time. So
no. My response is that
I'm just going to go into my
I see a hell of a lot of emotion.
I don't get as much screen time and as much mic time as you, so I'm going to try and get as many questions in as I can. You said, now everything's about race. Do you feel like race relations in the UK, particularly with black people, were all sweet before, George Floyd and these black...
Between whites and blacks in general in the country, yeah, I did.
You do think that race relations were good?
Yeah.
Even though you said you've been fighting racism for 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The next thing is, you mentioned about Black Pound Day and there was an issue around that. There's a rhetoric and there's this stigma around black people and, having chips on our shoulder sometimes, expecting a handout and things like that. So
this guy is a trip, man. He's hilarious. Absolutely zero self-awareness. Now, in this very segment, he goes on to personally state that Tommy Robinson personally owes him personally reparations because whites have oppressed blacks. So the thing about chip on the shoulder and entitlement that he just says is like some sort of false misrepresentation or some sort of negative stereotype. He literally demonstrates the stereotype to be accurate during this very exchange.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, just again, if you could give me a really short and sweet answer. Do you think white society owes black people, African people, a debt for, empire and for what they're perpetuating today in terms of exploiting African countries and even Caribbean ones? Do you think white society owes...
White society?
Yes.
White society as in every white person?
Do you think white society owes...
Well, when you say white society, what do you mean? What do you mean? Every white person?
Yes.
Do you think I owe a debt? No.
I've asked you a question.
No, I don't know.
You don't think...
I don't feel like I owe a debt.
So
do I feel there's a historical...
So me asking you, and me asking white society and saying, you should...
Do I talk for white society?
You should pay a reparation to us for the debts of empire.
Who's going to pay reparation for my family that was slaves? For my family that was slaves.
I'm just going to ask this really succinct question. When I say you should pay us a reparation, you should give us what we're due for what you've stolen from our countries and things like that, do you think that should happen? Yes or no?
But because of...
Including yourself, white society. So
white society?
You in that.
My family were enslaved as Irish.
No?
Who's going to... No.
Okay. So then when things like Black Pound Day happen and we say, okay, I'll humour you and say you don't owe us a debt, you don't owe us any reparations. What we're going to do...
Do you think I do?
Yes.
You think I owe you debt?
Yes, I do. So what I'm going to say...
You think I should give you money?
Because... If I'm just going to finish this last point just so I can understand your psychology around it.
Yep.
So we'll humour that point and say you don't owe us reparations. We're not going to get any sort of handouts from white society. What we're going to do is like, did you say you got Irish ancestry?
My family's Irish.
So like the Irish, like Indians, Asians, like Jews, what we're going to do is do it for ourselves and create things like Black Pound Day, create business for ourselves, and we're going to do that ourselves. Do you have a problem with us doing that ourselves? Saying we're going to have Black Pound Day.
I don't have a problem. I'm just literally telling you the reaction to it.
So I'm asking you,
it's
do
not
you
working.
have a problem with us having things like Black Pound Day?
It's not working for who, Tommy?
It's not working for race relations or for your community. And you can see that by the comments.
So
how do you know it's not working for our community?
Because it's just going to cause a divide.
So what I'm asking
total divide. That's what I believe. I don't care if you want to have Black Pound Day every day of the week.
So there's a divide if I ask you for money. There's a divide if I ask white society for money. And there's a divide if I don't ask white society for money and say we're going to do this for ourselves.
I'm just telling you the uncomfortable truth.
I really just want to understand that really.
And I'll tell you. Let me tell you.
Like I said.
Let him answer.
Let me answer. You've asked me. But you've asked me 5 questions. Let me answer.
Let him answer now. Let him answer.
I need to answer now.
So when we ask for a handout and say we want reparations is an issue, and when we say we're going to do it for ourselves is an issue. Yeah. There is.
If you want to have Black Pound Day 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you have it. I'm simply telling you that the reaction to it is not positive for your community. I don't believe.
So what is a positive reaction?
By whom?
By the general public. And I've gone on. As I said, there's a 90. I'm telling Reid. There's a 93% negative reaction to it online. Yeah?
By whom, Tommy? This is what I'm trying to say. By whom?
By the public who are.
So what you're saying is, okay, cool. Sorry. So I really just want to understand because like I said, I want to rather ask you than make assumptions from your videos and stuff. You think it's a negative, because you did actually say in the interview that we're going the wrong way about it. In those words, there or thereabouts, by trying to do things like Black Pound Day and do things for ourselves and not ask for handouts. But then there's also an issue if I turn around and say white society owes a debt.
Oh.
So what I'm going to ask you is,
cool.
If asking for help is an issue and doing for self is an issue, what would you prefer we do?
So on the first one, on the first point, why would I owe you anything? Me, personally. You said
I'm not here to answer.
But you just said I do. You just said I owe you. I should give you money.
I think because of the history of empire and what is continuing to be perpetuated.
The British Empire. But my family come from Ireland. Okay. So tell me again why I should give you anything.
So,
I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to understand how.
As we've spoken today,
I would never sit in. I would never sit in front of someone who has nothing to do with anything.
Even as an Irish person.
Do you not think you can succeed without handouts?
You asked me a question and I gave you the opportunity to answer.
Do you not think you can succeed without handouts?
I don't want to answer questions. I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Even as an Irish person.
So because of British Empire.
Am I going to get an opportunity?
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Okay, cool. Even as a white Irish person, British people have more of an affinity with you and more of a respect for you and will allow you to advance in their societies more than they will do as a black African. No
blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
There's a reason why it was in that order. Okay, so you just proved my point. Blacks, dogs, Irish. So that's why I'm asking: has white society benefited, and do they owe a debt? That's why I said white society.
No, you said me. I asked you if you mean me.
You asked me because you wanted to know. So you're a white Irish individual, and I said white society. I didn't make any bones about it. So you've asked me my question. That question, I've answered that. So that's why.
I think that's mad.
Okay, fair enough. And like I said, I wanted to.
I think it's insane, bro.
I wanted to understand your psychology.
Yeah.
Not to make a judgment. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah.
All right.
When it comes to Black Pound Day, if black
we shouldn't ask for help, or we shouldn't help ourselves. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely hilarious. The guy is just fucking stupid. There's no polite way to put it. Dumb beyond belief. So, reparations. No, first let's get into the Black Pound Day thing. So my position on Black Pound Day, I don't give a fuck. I have no link or affinity to that fucking clown because I share a similar melanin level or skin tone with him. Fuck that guy. He's entitled. He's low IQ. He has a clear chip on his shoulder. He is clearly an anti-white racist who feels that whites owe him personally today in 2020 money for historical events. So Black Pound Day, I am no part of the Black Caucus or Black monolith that he and Sarah like to portray that there is in the world, or even Britain specifically. I don't care about these guys. I don't respect these guys. I don't have any affiliation or connection to these guys. Fuck these guys. And if they did have a business, or if any black person has a business, I will choose to put my money into that business or not, based on the quality of its service or the quality of the goods or service that it is offering. Basically, does it have what I want at a price I'm willing to pay, and is the quality of sufficient standard? That's all I give a fuck about as a consumer, as a customer. I don't give a fuck if the business owner is black, is Jewish, is white, is Indian. Could not care less. Those that do care specifically about the race of those they do business with are racists, my friend, like you. You are a fucking racist, an anti-white racist specifically. So let's move on to reparations next. If we go on white on black slavery, let's class it as crassly as that. So the transatlantic slave trade. So basically the American and British slave trades. So going to the west of Africa and taking people from there, taking them to either the US or the Caribbean or wherever. If we look at that, that whole trade could not have existed without cooperation from black Africans. So black Africans sold other black Africans into slavery. They made deals with the white European slave traders that came to West Africa. White European slave traders didn't just come to West Africa and fucking snatch people without their consent. The black slaves were sold into slavery by Africans. So this guy is historically illiterate. So when he mentions reparations, is he factoring in the black slave traders, the black slave owners? So not only in Africa did Africans sell black African slaves to white Europeans, but also in America, there were black slave owners in America. Yes, black slave owners in America. So who is giving reparations to whom? You fucking moron. Now let's get into proportions of white people that had a direct involvement in the slave trade, aka directly owned slaves. I've seen estimates as low as 5%. 5% of the white US population actually own slaves. So that's 95% of whites in the US during the slave trade, during slavery, did not own slaves. So the vast majority. Then there are many white Americans who come from lineage that moved to the US after the slave trade had ended in the US. So they don't have anything to do with US slavery specifically. And it's similar for British. Most white British people didn't own slaves. They didn't partake in the slave trade, as it were. So they weren't like Colston, the statue of the guy that got pulled down in Bristol. They weren't massively wealthy and successful slave traders that benefited from slavery. So the vast majority of whites did not own slaves, did not partake in the slave industry. So they'll then push the goalposts or shift the goalposts to, well, these white slave traders plundered Africa and this benefited white nations. Well, my friend, you are currently the beneficiary of a white nation. This guy And every single fucking black nationalist, Afrocentrist, Pan-Africanist sat in that room, not a single one of you fucking lying hypocrites will relocate to a black African or a black majority country. You won't do it. You will stay because you know you have it better quality of life, better opportunities, better on basically every metric. You know you have it better in Britain. So why are you why are you demanding Britain gives you additional benefits and privileges to the ones it already provides you and offers you? I mean, the fucking sheer entitlement of this prick. And then let's get into the how you trace your direct lineage, how you trace that you are directly related or a descendant of slaves. It's problematic for many people because records aren't that great. For those that can prove it, they may well end up like fucking David Lammy. David Lammy is a descendant of a slave owner. David Lammy's black. He must be a descendant of a slave. No. Like I said, some blacks own slaves. And some blacks traded slaves. Specifically the Africans. And then let's get into the fact that before white Europeans ever got to Africa, blacks were murdering, pillaging, massacring, and enslaving other blacks for hundreds, if not thousands of years prior. So the whole reparations thing is a fucking joke entertained by black racists with a high sense of entitlement.